Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty exciting today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Hindu mythology. But we're not focusing on the gods and goddesses everyone always talks about.
Right, we're going deeper.
Yeah, exactly. We're going deeper, looking at all those creatures and demons. You know,
The one
who lurk in the shadows.
and make things exciting.
Exactly.
Sounds pretty comprehensive.
It's a mouthful, I know, but it's packed with all sorts of fascinating beings.
Give me.
Oh, like Nagas. Rakshasas, Asuras, Garuda.
Ooh, those sound...
Yeah, and even some heroic vultures, like Jatayu and Sampati.
Okay, I've heard of those.
From the Ramayana. So yeah, we're going to be uncovering the symbolic meanings, looking at their roles in these famous epics, and just exploring how all these creatures...
What they tell us about...
Yeah, what they tell us about Hindu philosophy, all the deeper stuff. Because they're not just like monsters in a story.
No, definitely not.
They embody some pretty profound concepts.
And they really bring those epic, cosmic dramas to life.
Exactly. So let's dive in. Where should we start? I mean, there are so many creatures to choose from.
Well, you mentioned Nagas, and I think most people are familiar with, the serpent as a symbol.
Yeah, of like renewal.
Renewal, right.
The unconscious.
Yeah, the unconscious mind, that sort of thing. And that ties into the Nagas' role, often as guardians of wisdom and hidden treasures.
That's interesting. So it's like they're protecting those deeper hidden truths.
Exactly. And what always gets me is that this reverence for serpents in India, it goes way, way back.
Really? Like how far back are we talking?
Further than you might think. We see evidence of serpent worship in the Indus Valley civilization.
Wow, that's ancient.
Yeah, and that's before the classic Hindu texts like the Vedas and the Puranas that we usually think of.
So this fascination with serpents is deeply ingrained in the culture.
It's fundamental. It's not just something that popped up later.
That's really cool. Okay, so we have these Nagas, these serpent deities, but I mean, serpents appear in mythologies all over the world, right?
That's true.
So what makes the Nagas like uniquely Hindu?
Well, the Nagas aren't just your average snakes. They're often depicted as these powerful beings, half human, half serpent.
Oh wow, like with a human torso and a serpent tail.
Exactly. And they're intelligent. They have this deep connection to the forces of nature, especially water, rivers, lakes, springs.
Makes sense. I mean, water is so essential in India.
Absolutely. But it's also, powerful.
Yeah, it can be destructive too, right?
Exactly. And that's reflected in the Nagas themselves.
So they're not always like benevolent beings.
No, they're not. They can be incredibly destructive if they're crossed.
Ooh, makes you think twice about stepping on a snake.
Right. There's a reason for that, respect, even fear mixed in with that reference.
I see what you mean. Okay, so any specific Nagas that stand out from the source material?
Well, there's Vasuki.
Oh yeah, Vasuki. He's the one who...
He's a key role.
Yeah, he plays a key role in that crazy story of...
Turning of the cosmic ocean.
Yes. The Samudra Manthan, right, where the gods and demons use this giant serpent as a rope.
It's an amazing image.
To churn the ocean, yeah.
It's primal energy, the serpent, becoming this tool.
And this cosmic tug of war.
Yeah, between order and chaos.
Wow. It makes you think about the serpent's role, Is it just passive or is it actually influencing what happens?
I know, right? It's a fascinating question. And then you have Shesha.
Shesha. Oh, I remember reading about him.
He's the king of all Nagas.
And he has like a bunch of heads, right?
Multi-headed, yeah.
And
symbolizing infinity.
Cyclical creation.
Oh, right. It's all about cycles. Creation, destruction, and then back again.
Exactly. And Shesha's role, he's the couch upon which Vishnu rests.
Wait, Vishnu literally chills out on this giant serpent during the intervals of cosmic dissolution. Yeah.
So like when universes are being created and destroyed, Vishnu's just, lounging on this giant serpent.
He's the embodiment of stability and continuity.
Wow, that's wild. Makes him seem pretty important.
Right. Not just a guardian, but a symbol of the eternal.
Yeah, the foundation of everything.
And that idea of transformation, rebirth.
That's tied to snakes, isn't it?
Absolutely. Shedding their skin, revealing a new form. It's no coincidence that the serpentine form is also associated with Kundalini energy.
Kundalini, it's like a spiritual energy, right?
Yeah, coiled at the base of the spine.
And it's often depicted as a serpent.
Exactly. And when that energy is awakened, it leads to higher states of consciousness. It's like the Naga within, guarding that potential.
So we all have a Naga inside us, waiting to be unleashed.
You could say that.
That's a cool way to think about it. Okay, so all this reverence for Nagas, I mean, it's not just ancient history, is it?
No, it's very much alive today. You have Naga temples, pilgrimages.
People still worship them.
Absolutely. Festivals like Naga Panchami, where people offer milk and prayers to serpents.
Wow. So those ancient beliefs are still woven into the fabric of Indian culture.
They're a living tradition. It's not just mythology. It's part of their everyday life.
That's incredible. It makes these stories come alive in a whole new way.
And that's what I love about exploring these myths. They're not just stories. They're glimpses into the human psyche, our fears, our aspirations.
Yeah, our attempts to make sense of the world.
Exactly.
Okay, we've talked about the Nagas, those serpent deities, but the source material mentions some other intriguing characters, like the Rakshasas and the Asuras.
Ah, yes, the ones who challenge the cosmic order.
They sound a bit more intimidating than the Nagas.
Well, they're the ones who bring the drama, the conflict, but it's not a simple case of good versus evil.
Oh, I thought that was like a standard theme in mythology.
Hindu mythology is a lot more nuanced than that.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more about these Rakshasas and Asuras, like what makes them tick?
Well, first of all, the term Asura didn't always have a negative connotation.
Really? So they weren't always the bad guys?
Not at all. In those early Vedic texts, they were powerful beings holding celestial positions, much like the Devas.
The Devas, those are the
gods, yeah.
So they were like on par with the gods.
In a way, yes. The term Asura initially just meant lord or mighty spirit.
So how did they go from being these powerful lords to being like the villains?
It reflects this deeper understanding of how cosmic order works in Hindu thought.
There has to be a balance.
Exactly. You have the Devas representing order, harmony, righteousness, and then the Asuras
Embodying the opposite.
chaos, ambition, a thirst for power.
That classic duality, right? Like light and darkness, order and chaos.
But Hindu thought goes beyond those simple binaries. Remember the concept of the gunas.
The gunas, those are the three qualities, right?
Yes. Purity, passion, and darkness. They're present in all beings.
So it's not about being purely good or evil, but which of those qualities is dominant?
Precisely. It's about choosing to align with Dharma, the cosmic order.
Okay, so how did the Asuras, like, fall from grace, so to speak?
The Puranas, those ancient Hindu texts, offer some explanations. They say that the Asuras and Devas share the same father.
So they're like siblings.
Cosmic siblings, yes, but born from different mothers.
Oh, I see. So maybe there was always a bit of sibling rivalry going on.
Maybe that's part of it, and the stories often depict them as being driven by envy.
Jealous of the gods.
Yeah, pride, and this desire to usurp their power.
To overthrow them, basically.
Exactly.
It's kind of human, isn't it? That desire for power and recognition.
Absolutely, it's those darker impulses that we all have to grapple with. But what's interesting is that the Devas and Asuras aren't always at odds.
They team up sometimes.
Remember the Samudra Manthan, the churning of the cosmic ocean?
Right. They work together to get that nectar of immortality.
Exactly. They have a shared goal, even though their motivations might be different.
But of course, it all falls apart, right, when it's time to share the spoils.
Well, sharing isn't exactly their strong suit. The Asuras try to grab it all for themselves.
And then chaos ensues.
Pretty much. It shows that maintaining cosmic balance requires constant vigilance.
It's not a one-time thing.
It's an ongoing process.
Makes you wonder if the Asuras ever had a chance at getting that nectar.
What would they have done with it? Would it have corrupted them?
It's a good question. Power can be a dangerous thing.
It can amplify those negative qualities and, those external conflicts, the battles between the Devas and Asuras.
They also mirror those internal struggles we all face.
Exactly.
It's like the Asuras represent those negative impulses within us. Greed, envy, selfishness.
That thirst for power.
It's like battling our own inner demons.
And by understanding the Asuras, the challenges they pose, we can gain insights into our own weaknesses.
It makes these myths so much more relevant.
It's not just about gods and demons, it's about understanding ourselves.
Okay, so we have these Asuras, these forces of chaos. But the source also mentions the Rakshasas. Are they similar to the Asuras, or are they a different breed altogether?
They're a distinct category. They're often depicted as more earthly beings.
So less about cosmic domination and more about, like, messing things up on a smaller scale.
You could say that. They lurk in forests, cemeteries.
Ooh, spooky.
They prey on humans, disrupt the natural order.
So they're more like the monsters under the bed, the things that go bump in the night.
They embody that fear of the unknown, the darkness that surrounds us.
Okay, but even among the Rakshasas, there are variations, right?
Definitely. Not all Rakshasas are created equal.
Like you have Ravana, for example.
Ah, Ravana, the demon king of Lanka.
He's the antagonist in Ramayana, right?
Yeah, but he's not just a one-dimensional villain.
I remember reading that he's also a scholar, a musician.
A devout Shiva worshipper.
Wow, so he's pretty complex.
He embodies that duality within human nature, capable of great devotion and terrible cruelty.
It makes you wonder what led him down that path.
The Ramayana suggests that his arrogance and thirst for power stem from a series of perceived injustices.
So like, he felt wronged. And that bitterness fueled his actions.
It's a cycle of pain and resentment that twists his desires.
It's tragic, in a way. Even those who commit terrible acts often have complex backstories.
It challenges us to look beyond those surface appearances, to see the human side of even the most monstrous beings.
And it makes you think about how choices, even seemingly small ones, can have these ripple effects.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these Rakshasa stories so compelling. They're not just about good versus evil. They're about the complexities of morality, the consequences of our actions.
And the potential for both darkness and light that exists within us all.
Exactly.
Okay, so those Asuras and Rakshasas, they really get you thinking, don't they?
They do. They're not just, cardboard cutouts of evil.
Yeah, like we were talking about how they're not inherently bad, those Asuras.
Right, and our source really emphasizes that distinction.
Yeah, what does it say about where these beings, come from?
Well, it talks about how in those early Vedic texts, the Asuras held those celestial positions.
Like the divas?
Yeah, much like the Devas. They were powerful beings.
Not automatically the villains.
Not at all.
Interesting. So that term Asura, it didn't always have that negative meaning.
Nope, it originally meant Lord or Mighty Spirit.
So like a title of respect almost.
Yeah, you could say that.
It makes you wonder how that shift happened. Why did Asura become synonymous with demon?
Well, I think it reflects that idea of balance. Remember we talked about how the universe needs those opposing forces?
Right, the divas representing order, harmony,
and the Asuras
embodying the opposite.
The chaos, the ambition, the thirst for power.
It's like a cosmic dance,
Pushing and pulling, keeping things in motion.
But I thought we were saying that Hinduism doesn't see those dualities as absolute.
That's the key. It's not black and white.
So even a diva could have moments of
darkness.
And an Asura might show glimpses of. So it's not about being inherently one or the other.
It's about those choices, those actions. Where do you align yourself?
With Dharma.
Exactly. That cosmic order.
Okay, but how did those Asuras go from those high positions to being seen as these demonic forces?
It's a dramatic shift.
Yeah, it is.
Well, the Puranas offer some explanations.
Those ancient texts.
Right, and they talk about the Asuras and Devas having this, shared ancestry.
They're related.
They have the same father, the sage Kashyapa.
Oh, okay.
But different mothers.
So like cosmic stepbrothers.
Something like that. Maybe that rivalry was always there, simmering beneath the surface.
Makes sense. And then the stories often portray them as driven by, envy of the divas.
Yeah, that pride, that ambition to,
to take what the divas have.
To usurp their power.
It's interesting, though, because it also makes them seem kind of
human.
Yeah, those are emotions we all experience. Envy, ambition.
We all have that potential for darkness.
And the divas, do they ever feel those things too?
I'm sure they do. They're not immune to temptation. But the key is, how do you channel those impulses?
Choose to align with Dharma.
That's it. But it's not always a constant battle between the Devas and Asuras.
Oh, right. I was just thinking about that. The churning of the cosmic ocean.
The Samudra Manthan.
They actually work together on that.
They do. They have a shared goal, that nectar of immortality.
Everyone wants a piece of that, right?
Immortality and power. But of course, their collaboration doesn't last.
Well, they are Asuras, after all.
And when it comes time to share the nectar,
they try to take it all.
Every time, it highlights that maintaining that cosmic balance is,
It's an ongoing effort.
It's not just a one-time victory.
Makes you wonder what would have happened if the Asuras had gotten their hands on that nectar.
Right. What would they have done with that kind of power?
Would it have made them even more?
Chaotic, destructive.
It's hard to say. Power can corrupt, even when it comes from a seemingly spiritual source.
I think it all goes back to intention,
If your heart's not in the right place.
That power can be a dangerous thing.
And it seems like the Asuras, their intentions were, not exactly aligned with Dharma.
They wanted to disrupt that order, to overthrow the Devas.
So their downfall was kind of inevitable.
It's hard to say for sure, but their actions definitely had consequences.
And it makes you think about our own lives,
How do we use our own power, our influence?
Are we acting in a way that upholds that cosmic order, that brings about harmony?
Or are we contributing to the chaos?
It's a question worth pondering, but, we were talking about how those external conflicts, those battles between divas and Asuras.
They reflect our own internal struggles.
Exactly.
The Asuras, they represent those negative impulses.
Those urges that we all have.
The greed, the envy, that lust for power.
It's like we all have an Asura lurking inside us.
And it's up to us to,
to keep it in check.
To choose Dharma over those destructive tendencies.
It's a constant battle.
It is. And it's one that we can learn from,
By understanding the Asuras, their motivations,
we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Okay, let's talk about some specific Asuras now, the ones who really embody those negative qualities.
All right, you mentioned Mahishasura, the buffalo demon.
He's a pretty formidable figure.
He is. He represents that untamed, primal energy.
And he wreaks havoc on the world, right?
He threatens both gods and mortals.
And the buffalo imagery, is there any significance to that?
Well, some interpretations suggest that the buffalo represents that raw power.
Uncontrolled.
Without discipline, without guidance.
And Mahishasura, he's all about that unchecked force.
He's a force of nature, but a destructive one.
So how is he stopped? The divas, they don't just let him run wild, do they?
They call upon Durga.
Durga, the warrior goddess.
She's the embodiment of feminine power, divine wrath.
She's a fierce one. And her battle with Mahishasura, pretty epic, right?
It spans multiple days. They both transform into different forms.
Shape-shifting demons.
It's a testament to her adaptability, her resilience.
She's not giving up.
And ultimately, she triumphs.
She slays Mahishasura.
She restores balance to the cosmos.
It's a powerful story, and it's not just a myth, right? It's celebrated every year during Navaratri.
That's right, 9 nights of celebration.
Honoring Durga and her victory.
It's about reaffirming those values of courage, righteousness.
It's a reminder that even the most powerful demons
can be defeated
with courage And the right kind of power.
And the support of the divine, of course.
Makes you wonder, though, do those celebrations, do they actually, like, banish evil? Or are they more symbolic?
I think it's both. They're a reminder that we have to actively choose good over evil, to cultivate those qualities that bring about harmony.
So it's not just a passive celebration.
It's a call to action.
It's about making those choices in our own lives, every single day.
Okay, let's move on to another Asura. Bhasmasurus, he's a fascinating character.
Bhasmasura, he's the one with that,
Deadly touch.
yeah. He can turn anyone to ash.
Just by touching them.
That's a pretty intense power.
And what's interesting is that he gains this power through, spiritual practices.
So even demons can be spiritual.
It highlights that spiritual power is accessible to all beings.
But it can be dangerous in the wrong hands.
It's a double-edged sword. And Bhasmasura, he gets a little carried away with his power.
He lets it go to his head.
He tries to use it against Shiva.
Shiva, the one who gave him the power in the first place.
That's right.
Talk about biting the hand that feeds you.
It's a classic case of ego gone wild.
So what happens? Does Shiva just, like, obliterate him?
Shiva calls upon Vishnu for help.
Vishnu, the trickster god.
He appears as Mohini,
Mohini, the enchantress.
known for her beauty, her charm.
Oh, I see where this is going.
She challenges Bhasmasura to a dance contest.
And he can't resist, right?
He's completely smitten.
And during the dance, Mohini, she does this move where she touches her own head.
And Bhasmasura, in his eagerness to impress her,
He copies her.
and turns himself to ash.
Wow. Talk about self-destruction.
It's a classic example of how ego can lead to downfall.
Blinded by his own arrogance.
It's a reminder that we need to be mindful of our desires, our ambitions,
Power could be seductive.
but it needs to be balanced with wisdom, compassion.
Otherwise, we might end up destroying ourselves.
Are you ready for another Ashura tale?
Hit me with it. What other troublemakers do we have on the list?
This one's a big one. Hiranyakashipu. He's like the ultimate tyrant.
Oh, wow. Worse than Mahishasura.
He takes control to a whole new level, gains immense power through, years of austerities.
So like hardcore spiritual practices.
But that power, it corrupts him.
He wants to control everything.
Everyone, everything. He declares himself the supreme god.
That's a bold move. Didn't he realize that messing with the divine order was going to have some, consequences?
His arrogance blinded him to the danger. He thought he was invincible.
So how does his reign of terror end? I have a feeling Vishnu might be involved.
You're right, but it's not a direct confrontation. The catalyst for his downfall is actually his own son.
His son. That's interesting.
His son, Prahlada, he's a devout devotee of Vishnu.
So, like, the good son of the evil father.
Exactly. And Prahlada's faith, it infuriates Hiranyakashipu. He tries everything to break his son's spirit.
But Prahlada doesn't give in.
He remains devoted to Vishnu.
It's amazing, that even in such a hostile environment, that spark of faith can survive.
It speaks to that innate longing for the divine.
It can't be extinguished.
So Vishnu, seeing all this, he decides to intervene.
How does he do it? Does he just, like, show up and smite Hiranyakashipu?
He takes a more creative approach. He manifests as Narasimha,
Narasimha, the half-man, half-lion avatar.
a truly awe-inspiring and terrifying form.
And I'm guessing this form is specifically chosen for a reason?
You see, Hiranyakashipu, he had obtained this boon, making him seemingly invincible.
Oh, he thought he'd covered all his bases.
He couldn't be killed by man or animal during the day or night, inside or outside.
So he thought he was untouchable.
But Vishnu, he finds a loophole.
There's always a loophole.
Narasimha appears at twilight,
Neither day nor night,
on the threshold of a doorway.
neither inside nor outside.
And his form, it's neither fully god nor beast.
So he bypasses all of Hiranyakashipu's protections.
It's like the universe itself is conspiring to bring about his downfall.
And what does Narasimha do?
He tears Hiranyakashipu apart on his lap.
Wow. Brutal, but I guess fitting.
It fulfills the prophecy without violating its terms.
So it's a very specific kind of divine justice.
And it's a powerful message about tyranny, arrogance.
No matter how powerful you think you are.
There are consequences for your actions.
It's also a testament to faith, Paloda's unwavering devotion.
It ultimately leads to his father's downfall.
But also his own salvation.
It shows that even in the darkest of circumstances, that spark of faith can ignite a powerful transformation.
It can bring about justice.
So we've seen these asuras, these embodiments of chaos and ambition, but what about those rakshasas, those more earthly, troublemakers?
Right, they're not trying to overthrow the gods.
They're more about creating havoc on a smaller scale?
But you were saying that even among the Rakshasas, there are different types.
Not all rakshasas are driven by pure malice.
Some have more complex motivation.
Exactly, and their stories offer a different perspective on the nature of good and evil.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me some examples. Who are some of these Rakshasa personalities?
Well, we have to start with Ravana, the demon king of Lanka.
Ravana, he's a major figure in the Ramayana.
The antagonist, you could say.
But he's also like a scholar, a musician.
A devout Shiva worshipper.
He's not just a mindless monster.
He's a complex character, capable of great devotion and terrible cruelty.
It's that duality again, isn't it?
It's a reminder that even those who commit evil acts can possess qualities that we associate with goodness.
So it's not always black and white.
There are shades of gray.
It makes you wonder what led Ravana down that path.
Well, the Ramayana suggests that his arrogance and thirst for power, they stem from these, perceived injustices.
So like, he's wronged in the past, and that bitterness fueled his actions.
It's a cycle of pain and resentment.
It's tragic, in a way. It shows that even villains have their reasons.
And it challenges us to, have compassion, even for those we might consider our enemies.
To see the bigger picture.
And to understand that everyone has their own story.
And that choices have consequences.
Even seemingly small ones.
It's like those ripple effects we were talking about.
But it's interesting because even within Ravana's own family, there's this, moral conflict.
His brother, Kumbhakarna.
He's a giant, gluttonous demon.
But he's also known for his wisdom.
He questions Ravana's decision to kidnap Sita.
He sees the wrong in it.
But he's also bound by duty, by loyalty to his brother.
It's a tough situation, torn between what's right in your family ties.
It highlights those complexities of morality, even in a family of demons.
There can be those who struggle with right and wrong.
And it makes you realize that appearances can be deceiving.
Even the most monstrous beings can have qualities that we admire.
Loyalty, wisdom.
It's about looking beyond those labels.
And seeing the individual.
Okay, what about Maricha? He's another Rakshasa, right?
He's the one who helps Ravana kidnap Sita.
The master of illusion.
A shapeshifter.
He uses his powers for deception.
But what's fascinating is that even he expresses doubts about the plan.
He knows it's wrong.
He warns Ravana that it will lead to their destruction.
But he goes along with it anyway.
Why do you think he does that?
Loyalty. Fear.
Or maybe he feels like it's inevitable.
Like fate has already been decided.
It's a complex question, but it shows that even those who participate in evil acts can have moments of doubt.
It makes them more human, Not just villains, but individuals making choices.
Choices that have consequences.
And it makes you think about our own choices, doesn't it?
Are we standing up for what we believe in, even when it's difficult?
Or are we compromising our values for the sake of convenience, out of fear?
These Rakshasa stories, they're not just about demons.
They're about us.
They reflect our own struggles, our capacity for both good and evil.
And the importance of aligning our actions with our values.
Okay, so we've talked about these Rakshasas and Asuras as, these disruptive forces, but I'm curious, how are they portrayed in Hindu rituals and festivals?
I was just thinking about that. I know that, the defeat of Ravana is celebrated during Dussehra, right?
Exactly. And Durga's victory over Mahishasura is celebrated during Navaratri.
So these myths, they're not just stories. They're woven into the fabric of Indian culture.
They're living traditions.
Well, what's the purpose of those celebrations? Are they just symbolic? Or is there a more practical aspect to them?
I think it's a bit of both. They're a way of remembering those epic battles.
Of good versus evil.
But they're also about reaffirming those core values.
Of righteousness, courage.
It's a way of reminding people that they have to actively choose good over evil, that they have a role to play in maintaining that cosmic balance.
It's like a communal effort.
And it's powerful,
Like, during Dussehra, people burn effigies of Ravana.
It's a symbolic destruction of evil.
It's a visual reminder that even the most powerful demons
can be defeated.
And that we have the power to overcome negativity in our own lives.
But it's interesting because even though we've been talking about Rakshasas and Asuras as these, negative forces.
They're not always portrayed that way.
Right. Our source mentions that some Rakshasas are actually revered in certain local traditions.
So like a demon in one context might be a protector in another.
It highlights the diversity of Hindu mythology, how adaptable it is.
So it's not about these rigid categories.
It's about perspective, interpretation.
Like, there are stories of Rakshasas who become guardians of villages, after being subdued, of course.
It's a reminder that even demonic beings can change.
They can align themselves with Dharma.
And become forces for good.
So there's always hope for redemption.
It's a beautiful message, I think, that transformation is always possible.
It speaks to that inclusive nature of Hindu mythology.
Acknowledging the complexity of existence.
And the potential for good within all beings.
So, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. Those Rakshasas and Asuras, they really make you think.
They challenge our assumptions about good and evil.
They remind us that it's not always so simple.
It's about choices, actions, and the constant struggle to maintain that balance.
Both within ourselves and in the world around us.
And those battles, they're not just fought with weapons.
It's about cultivating those qualities of righteousness, compassion, wisdom.
And choosing to align ourselves with Dharma.
Now, after all that intensity, I'm ready for something a little more,
uplifting.
Yeah, exactly. Something beautiful, inspiring.
Well, then you're in for a treat. Get ready to enter the realm of the Gandharvas and Apsaras.
The celestial musicians and dancers.
Prepare to be enchanted.
Okay, wow, those Rakshasas and Asuras. Talk about a wild ride.
Intense, right?
Yeah. But I think I'm ready for something a little more,
A little lighter.
Yeah, a little lighter, a little more beautiful, maybe.
Well, you're in luck, because we're about to enter the realm of the Gandharvas and Apsaras.
Ooh, yes. The celestial musicians and dancers.
These are the beings who bring beauty and harmony to the cosmos.
I've always loved those depictions of them, all graceful and radiant.
They're definitely captivating.
But I have to admit, I haven't really thought much about, what they represent.
Well, that's what we're here for, to uncover those deeper layers of meaning.
Because they're not just there to, like, entertain the gods, are they?
No, they're much more than that. They embody the power of art itself.
The power of art.
Yeah, its ability to inspire, to evoke emotions.
To connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And the Gandharvas and Apsaras, they're the masters of that art.
Okay, so let's start with the Gandhakas. I know they're, like, heavenly musicians.
They're often described as residing in Indra's court, entertaining the gods with their music.
So, like the celestial orchestra.
You could say that. They provide the soundtrack for those grand divine gatherings.
I love that image. But their music, it's not just background noise, is it?
Not at all. In Hindu thought, sound is considered this incredibly creative force.
The source of all manifestation.
Exactly. And the Gandharvas, through their music, they harness that power.
They shape reality with their melodies.
In a way, yes. They contribute to the harmony and balance of the cosmos.
That's pretty amazing. So they can create music that evokes all sorts of emotions.
Oh, absolutely. Joy, peace, love, even those deeper emotions like awe and reverence.
Wow, they're like the ultimate mood setters.
And their music isn't just about, creating a pleasant atmosphere. It can actually influence events, both in the heavens and on Earth.
So their music has real power.
It's a conduit for divine energy.
I'm starting to see why they're so revered, but are they just like naturally gifted? Or is there a sense of like knowledge and wisdom behind their music?
It's both. They're incredibly skilled, but they're also seen as guardians of knowledge, especially when it comes to the sacred arts.
So like they're the keepers of those ancient traditions.
And they sometimes act as teachers, passing down their wisdom to worthy mortals.
So they're like the celestial music professors.
Yeah, and they don't always stay up in the heavens. There are stories of them coming down to Earth, interacting with humans.
Really? Like what kind of interactions?
Sometimes it's about sharing their knowledge, inspiring humans to greater artistic heights. Other times it's about, blurring those lines between the human and the divine.
That's so cool. It's like a reminder that the sacred can manifest in unexpected ways.
And that those boundaries between realms, they're not always so rigid.
Makes you wonder if those encounters with the Gandharvas might have inspired some of the incredible musical traditions we see in India.
It's definitely a possibility. But now let's talk about the Apsaras, those celestial dancers.
Yes, they're always depicted as so beautiful and graceful.
And their beauty, it's not just about physical appearance. It's about radiating that inner beauty, that spiritual radiance.
So it's more than just like being pretty.
Much more. And in Hindu thought, dance is seen as this form of ritualistic worship.
Really? Like a way of connecting with the divine through movement.
Exactly. And the Apsaras embody that connection. Their dances are like prayers, celebrations of the sacred.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to think about it. It elevates dance to a whole new level.
And their beauty can be incredibly captivating, but it can also be a source of temptation.
Like for those seeking enlightenment.
Remember Menaka and Vishwamitra?
Right. She distracted him from his meditation with her beauty.
It's a classic story about that tension between spiritual aspiration and worldly desire.
Like a reminder that even the most dedicated seeker can be tempted.
And the Apsara, with their ethereal beauty, they represent that delicate balance.
Between indulging in those desires and transcending them.
It's not about rejecting beauty or desire, but about understanding their power and not letting them control us.
So it's about finding that balance.
And the Apsaras also remind us of the impermanence of all things.
They often vanish as quickly as they appear.
It's a symbol of the fleeting nature of beauty, of pleasure.
It's a reminder to appreciate the present moment, to enjoy those experiences without clinging to them.
And while the Apsaras are often associated with temptation, they can also be sources of blessing.
Oh, really? So they're not just distractions.
They're often associated with fertility, abundance, good fortune.
It's like they have this duality to them, just like the other creatures we've talked about.
It's all about perspective interpretation.
And it seems like both the Gandharvas and Apsaras have had a huge influence on Indian culture.
Oh, absolutely. Their influence is everywhere. Music, dance, art, literature.
It's like their celestial artistry continues to inspire us.
It speaks to that deep connection between art and the divine.
Okay, so we've explored these amazing creatures, these demons, these celestial beings. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and I think it's a reminder that all these beings, they represent different aspects of ourselves.
Like they're not just figures in a story.
They embody those inner forces that shape our thoughts, our emotions.
And Hindu mythology gives us this framework for understanding those forces, for navigating those challenges.
And those challenges, they're not just, ancient myth.
They're still relevant today.
We're all still grappling with those same questions of good and evil, power, desire, the search for meaning.
And it's up to us to choose how we respond to those challenges.
To align ourselves with those values that bring about harmony and balance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to ask you, which of these creatures or demons has resonated with you the most?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so many to choose from. But I think for me, it's Jatayu, that heroic vulture from the Ramayana.
Oh yeah, he's the one who tries to stop Ravana from kidnapping Cedar.
Even though he knows he's outmatched.
He's so brave.
And even though he's mortally wounded, he still manages to inform Rama about what happened.
He sets the whole rescue mission in motion.
He sacrifices himself for a greater cause.
It's such a powerful story of courage, selflessness, and doing what's right.
And it's a reminder that even the smallest of us can make a difference.
That even in the face of overwhelming odds, we can choose to act.
To stand up for what we believe in.
That's a beautiful message. And it's one that I think we can all carry with us.
It's been a pleasure exploring these myths with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Hindu mythology,
We hope you've enjoyed the journey,
and that you'll continue to explore these fascinating stories and the wisdom they hold.
because they're more than just myths.
They're reflections of ourselves, of the universe, and those eternal truths that connect us all.
Until next time, may your journals be filled with wonder and discovery.
Farewell.